Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. I'd love to know. And if you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to like and subscribe. All right, let's jump in. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like a swarm of angry bees. The conference room was cold, not just in temperature but in tone. Sterile glass walls, brushed steel fixtures, and a long mahogany table surrounded by suited executives pretending to be relaxed. At the head sat Marcus Granger, CEO of Granger Tech, dressed in a $5,000 custom suit and an expression that tried, and failed, to mask the storm beneath. Why was the CEO personally sitting in on a routine audit meeting? I was seated 3 chairs down from him, pen in hand, reviewing the last set of reports I'd received the night before. My name is Ethan Cole, forensic accountant, third-party auditor, and, until 15 minutes ago, a man simply doing his job. But something about the numbers didn't add up. Transfers between shell companies, double invoicing patterns, reimbursements that didn't match any known itinerary. I was preparing to ask a few pointed questions when Marcus leaned forward. Did he know I was onto something? Ethan, Marcus began, voice smooth like honey laced with poison. I want to thank you for your service over the past few weeks. We appreciate your diligence, really we do, but the board has decided to terminate the audit contract, effective immediately. The air froze. My pen slipped from my fingers and clattered against the polished wood table. Around me, the room of executives sat still as statues, refusing to meet my eyes. Cowards. Why shut down the audit just days before completion? I stared at Marcus. You're terminating me, now, with everything I've found? He smiled, almost like a man disappointed that his dog had disobeyed. Ethan, we've received complaints about your approach. Invasive, overstepping. We're a transparent company, but there's a way things are done. That was rich. Invasive? I was literally hired to audit them. That was the whole point. What were they so desperate to hide from me? I opened my folder and slid a printed report down the table. This is a trail of transactions leading to an offshore account in the Caymans. It's not on any of your tax filings. Care to explain? Marcus didn't even glance down. Instead, he nodded to the security guard standing by the door. Mr. Cole is no longer a guest of the company. Please escort him out. Did they think they could erase everything just by firing me? The security guard, a bulky man with apologetic eyes, gently placed a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, man. Orders. I stood slowly, heart pounding. No one said a word. Not the CFO who complimented my work last week. Not the controller who quietly slipped me a flash drive 3 nights ago. They all looked away, pretending their screens were far more interesting. Had I been set up from the start? As I was led down the hallway, past glass offices and smiling receptionists, I couldn't stop thinking about one thing. I was right. I didn't just suspect something. I had evidence. What they didn't know was that I had already uploaded a duplicate copy of everything, files, spreadsheets, voice memos, to an encrypted cloud drive. Would I have enough proof to bring them down from the outside? They thought firing me was the end of the story. But what they didn't realize is that I wasn't the kind of man who disappeared quietly. You can humiliate me. You can smear my name. But I don't back down when I know I'm right. What's my next move? When the system is rigged against people like me? Outside the building, I stood in the wind, my bag heavier than before. Not with documents, but with betrayal. I pulled out my phone. One message blinked on the screen. It was from an anonymous number. You got too close. Stay out, or you won't be the only one they bury. Chills crawled down my spine. This wasn't just corporate fraud. This was something bigger, something darker. Who sent that message? And what were they trying to cover up? Back at my tiny apartment in Queens, I sat at my desk, surrounded by takeout containers and sticky notes, reviewing every file I had backed up. The pattern was undeniable. Marcus wasn't just skimming. He was laundering money. Fake vendors, inflated acquisitions, kickbacks disguised as consulting fees. This wasn't a rogue mistake. It was a full-blown criminal enterprise. Could I take this to the authorities without being buried in legal threats? Or worse? My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail from Lydia, the Granger Tech junior accountant who had helped me dig deeper. Her voice trembled. "They know about us, Ethan. I think they're watching my apartment. I'm going to disappear for a while. Be careful." I stared at the wall, numb. Had I endangered innocent people by poking into this? Suddenly, it was bigger than revenge. Bigger than job loss or humiliation. This was about justice. And if no one else was willing to fight, I would. I picked up a photo from my desk, my father in his old denim overalls, standing in front of our family farm. He always told me, "The truth matters more than comfort, son. And real men don't look away when it's hard." I wouldn't look away. What will it cost me to see this through to the end? 3 weeks earlier, the world was quiet. Just the way I liked it. The envelope arrived on a rainy Tuesday, thick cream paper with my name etched in silver ink. Most of my jobs came via email, PDF, and a digital signature. But this was different. Inside was a contract from a top private auditing firm I occasionally freelanced for. The assignment? A full-scale internal audit of Granger Tech, a billion-dollar tech firm with rising stock, government contracts, and a golden public reputation. Why would a company that appeared spotless suddenly request an aggressive internal audit? I wasn't their first choice. That was clear. The lead had dropped out suddenly. No explanation, no warning. I got the job because I had a reputation for staying quiet and digging deep. I didn't schmooze. I didn't gossip. I followed the numbers like a bloodhound. And more than once, those numbers had exposed the things powerful people would rather stay buried. Why did the original auditor back out so abruptly? The moment I stepped into Granger Tech's headquarters, something felt off. Not immediately hostile, just too perfect. Employees smiled a little too wide. Security was tighter than most tech companies I'd audited. Executive offices had fingerprint scanners. Cameras watched every hallway. I chalked it up to high-level confidentiality. After all, this was a firm with military-grade AI projects and federal contracts. Still, something tugged at me. What were they trying to hide behind all this manufactured perfection? My point of contact was a junior accountant named Lydia Hart. Early 30s, nervous eyes, and a clear fear of speaking above a whisper. She greeted me with a forced smile and handed me a secure laptop with preloaded access to company financials, or rather, the parts they wanted me to see. "Everything you need should be here," she said. But her eyes screamed, "There's more." Was Lydia trying to warn me, without saying it out loud? I spent the first week combing through invoices, purchase orders, tax filings, all clean, suspiciously clean, almost sterile. It didn't feel real, like someone had scrubbed them too hard. Patterns emerged that didn't make sense. Office chairs purchased 4 times in the same quarter to the same floor. Consultant fees paid to firms with barely a web presence. Corporate credit card charges that started at steakhouses and ended at resorts. Were these intentional errors or sloppy attempts to cover up something bigger? I requested access to the raw transaction logs. At first, silence. Then came excuses. System maintenance. Restricted access. Need CEO clearance. Standard stonewalling techniques. But I knew how to navigate these waters. That's when I got the first anonymous email. It had no subject, no body, just a .zip file attached. Inside, Transaction records not listed anywhere in the system they gave me. Hidden account numbers. Payments to shell companies in Belize. Time-stamped approvals from Marcus Granger himself. Who was sending me these files, and why anonymously? I confronted Lydia, gently. She looked like she might burst into tears just hearing the question. "You didn't get those from me," she whispered. "Don't bring it up again here. You don't know who's listening." Then she slid a napkin across the table with 4 words scribbled in shaky pen. "They bug the meeting rooms." Who exactly was they? Was this paranoia or surveillance? That night, I moved into a hotel, scrubbed my phone, stopped using company Wi-Fi. Every move I made after that was done in secret. I started printing documents off-site, organizing data in encrypted folders, cross-referencing every entry with public filings, leaked contracts, third-party vendors. The picture started to form, and it was ugly. Granger Tech was inflating project costs, charging the government double, then siphoning off the difference into offshore accounts. Was Marcus acting alone, or was the whole executive team complicit? 2 weeks in, I requested an interview with Marcus. His assistant declined instantly, said the CEO wasn't available for individual audit inquiries. That was unusual. CEOs usually loved playing transparent, especially during audits. It kept appearances squeaky clean. But Marcus? He was hiding. That's when I knew. This wasn't going to end quietly. What would happen if I pushed too hard, too fast? One night, working from my hotel room, I got another email. This one wasn't anonymous. It was from an address I didn't recognize. But the name stopped me cold. Jonathan Reyes. He was the former auditor who had suddenly dropped out, the one I had replaced. The message was short. "Ethan, I hope you have a backup of everything. They're not just stealing. They're laundering, and worse. Don't let them know you know. I barely got out." Attached was a voice memo. Static, garbled breathing, then Reyes's voice, shaking but clear. "They threatened my wife. That's why I ran. Don't trust anyone on the 5th floor." What had Reyes found that made him run for his life? My stomach sank. This wasn't just fraud. This was criminal enterprise, federal level. I wasn't auditing a company. I was walking through the center of a silent war. And they had just realized I was armed. The next morning, Lydia didn't show up to our 9 a.m. meeting. Her desk was cleared, her nameplate gone. No one seemed to know, or care, where she went. Had they found out she was helping me? I started getting paranoid. Cars idling outside too long, phone clicks, even my hotel door once left ajar. I changed hotels again, used burner phones, rerouted all backups through 3 VPNs. But still, I kept working. Because if I stopped now, all of it, all the proof, would vanish. Just like Lydia. Just like Reyes. Was I already too far in to get out safely? Then, 3 days before my scheduled final report, I got a call from an unknown number. A man's voice, calm and practiced, said, "Your contract ends early. Show up tomorrow, same room, no questions, just sign the release." That was it. No explanation, no room for negotiation. Why were they pulling the plug now, just when I had everything? I didn't sleep that night. I backed up everything onto 4 separate drives, hid them in places I hoped no one would think to look. One under a mailbox, one mailed to myself, one in a locker at the gym, one given to a friend with instructions. Only release if something happens to me. And then I walked into the meeting. Straight into the lion's den. The boardroom felt colder than ever. I stood there just moments after Marcus had ordered security to escort me out. But I didn't move. Not yet. Something inside me, a fire, a stubborn refusal to be silenced, rooted me in place. Around the table, their eyes flicked between me and the CEO like they were watching a lion about to strike, but no one dared to speak. Did they think this was the end of my story? "You know," I said calmly, turning back toward Marcus, "most people would at least pretend to be subtle." He raised an eyebrow, like a king too bored to notice the commoner addressing him. I slid a flash drive across the table. "Here's the trail from your last 6 consultants. One of them doesn't even exist. One's your brother-in-law. One is a shell company that owns another shell company that's wired $500,000 to your private account in Belize. Would anyone around this table have the courage to speak up? Or would they all stay silent?" Marcus didn't even look down at it. He just smiled. That smug politician smile. "You've made quite a mess, Mr. Cole. An impressive fiction." I leaned in. "You can fire me, but you can't stop what's coming." He chuckled and then snapped his fingers. A second security guard entered. "Take him out," he said, "and make sure everything he touched is wiped clean." Were they going to destroy everything I'd uncovered? Right here, right now? I left the building in silence. No fight, no resistance. That wasn't the battlefield I wanted. The next phase had already begun. As soon as I was outside, I pulled out my phone, texted a single word to a contact I hadn't used in years. "Green light." What did green light mean? And who exactly was on the other end of that text? The truth was, I'd never trusted the job from day one, and I never worked alone. 2 weeks earlier, I'd looped in an old friend from college, Jenna Ray, investigative journalist. No one knew, not even Lydia. Jenna had been watching from the shadows, scraping data from Granger Tech's public APIs, pulling tax records, tracing names. She'd built a map of corruption that even I hadn't seen yet. She called 30 seconds after the text. Her voice was electric. "You ready to burn the house down?" Would the world believe us? Or would Granger Tech spin it first? We launched Phase 1 the next morning. Jenna published a teaser article on her blog, an expose titled, "The Billion-Dollar Fraud Hiding in Plain Sight." It didn't name names, not yet, just hinted. Evidence of inflated contracts, tax evasion, fake vendor payments. By noon, it had 500,000 views. By 2 p.m., it was trending nationally. How long until Marcus realized this wasn't just a whistleblower, it was war? Granger Tech's PR team scrambled. They denied everything, called it fake news, an unverified smear campaign. But then Jenna dropped Phase 2. She released 2 emails, both signed by Marcus himself, authorizing payments to shell companies. The media exploded. Stocks dropped 17% in 1 hour. Board members began distancing themselves. One resigned live on CNBC. Would Marcus try to fight the fire? Or would he go nuclear? He went nuclear. That night, a black SUV parked outside my hotel. 2 men in suits sat inside, engines running for over an hour. I didn't go out the front door. I used the fire escape. Slipped down 3 alleys, met Jenna in a diner 10 miles out of the city. She had something new. "Lydia sent me this before she disappeared," she said, sliding over a USB drive. "Video surveillance. It's Marcus, on camera, talking about laundering the funds." Was this finally the nail in the coffin? Or would Marcus find a way to slither out again? I sent the video to 3 federal investigators. One of them called back within the hour. "Mr. Cole, we've been watching Granger Tech for months," he said. "We just didn't have enough to move. But this tips the scale. We're moving tonight." I felt like I could finally breathe. Was justice finally catching up? Or was this just another false hope? The next morning, headlines screamed, "FBI raids Granger Tech headquarters. CEO under federal investigation." Photos of agents in windbreakers filled every screen. Marcus being escorted out in handcuffs, board members being subpoenaed, shareholders in chaos, reporters scrambling to cover the scale of the corruption. And just like that, the kingdom fell. But what would happen to the people who tried to stop him? Like Lydia? Like me? 2 days later, I received a message from an encrypted account. It was Lydia. She was safe, hiding out of state, but grateful. "I saw the news," she wrote. "You did it. We did it. Thank you." I stared at the screen for a long time. Was it finally over? Or just the beginning of something bigger? Marcus was charged with conspiracy, wire fraud, and embezzlement. He pled not guilty, of course. But Jenna's next article, "The Empire of Lies," made sure the world wouldn't forget his face, or mine. I became a name in the news. Invitations poured in. Offers from firms, TV networks, podcasts. But I said no to most of them. Fame wasn't what I wanted. What did I want after all this? A few months later, I walked back into Granger Tech. The new board had taken over. Federal regulators were inside. And guess what? They asked me to return, not as an auditor, as the new chief compliance officer. I stepped into that same boardroom, the one where I'd been humiliated, erased, silenced. Now, every single person in the room stood when I entered. How many of them once looked the other way when Marcus tried to destroy me? I looked across the table. One of the execs, the CFO, asked nervously, "So, what's your first agenda?" I smiled. "We're going to audit everything, every file, every transfer, every shadow." I leaned forward. "And if anyone has a problem with that, there's the door." 6 months had passed. The building was still the same. Polished floors, chrome elevators, motivational posters on every wall. But the air felt different now. Cleaner. Lighter. It was the first time in years Granger Tech had operated without secrets poisoning its foundation. That wasn't just corporate spin. It was real. People walked the halls without looking over their shoulders. The employees who had once whispered behind closed doors now spoke freely in open lounges. And every major decision passed across my desk. Could I truly change a place that had once tried to bury me? My nameplate on the office door read, "Ethan Cole, Chief Compliance Officer." But that title wasn't what I was proud of. What mattered more was what it represented. A man who had once been shoved out of the building with his dignity in a trash bag, now holding the keys to its integrity. The board had tried to offer me Marcus's old corner office. I turned it down. Too many ghosts in that room. Was I rebuilding something, or haunted by what I survived? One morning, I received an email marked confidential. It was from the Department of Justice. The subject line read, "Case Resolution, Marcus Granger et al." I opened it slowly. My hands didn't shake, not anymore, but there was still a strange heaviness in my chest, like the final chapter of a long, brutal novel was coming to a close. Marcus had taken a plea deal, 20 years in federal prison, no parole. 2 of his board allies flipped. They testified under oath. The case would serve as a landmark ruling on white-collar fraud. Was justice truly served? Or had Marcus still escaped the worst of it? I called Lydia. It went to voicemail. I left a simple message. "He's gone. You're safe." That evening, she texted back a photo of her and her sister, smiling under the sun out in Colorado, starting a new life. She said she was thinking about going back to school, studying law. "I want to help people the way you helped me," she wrote. "Had the worst thing that happened to us become the beginning of something better?" That weekend, Jenna stopped by my apartment. She brought 2 coffees and a USB drive. Final archive, she said. The Granger files. Full story. Every dirty contract. Every buried secret. I'm done writing about them. Time to write something new. I nodded. You're the reason we won. She smiled, but shook her head. No, Ethan. You're the one who walked into the fire. I just held the flashlight. Was it finally time to let go of the past and live again? In the months that followed, I started getting letters, not emails. Letters. From interns, auditors, whistleblowers, people from all over the country. They'd seen the story, my story, and something about it struck them. Some wrote, "You gave me courage." Others said, "Now I know I'm not crazy." One woman simply wrote, "I was going to quit. Then I watched what you did." They didn't see me as a hero, not some action movie figure. They saw me as someone who had been torn apart, then put himself back together, piece by piece, in full view of the world. Had my story become something bigger than just revenge? On the anniversary of Marcus's arrest, the company held an all-hands meeting. Over 700 employees gathered in the main auditorium. I stood on stage, no spotlight, no ego, just a man with a microphone and a story. I was fired in this very building, I told them, not because I failed, but because I refused to look away. I paused. A heavy silence settled. And now I'm here to make sure none of you ever have to go through that again. The applause started small. Then it grew. Then it roared. Was this closure or something even deeper? Later that night, I walked past the old conference room where it all went down. The fluorescent-lit firing, the smug smiles, the silence. I opened the door. Empty now. Just a plain table, a few chairs, a water cooler humming in the corner. I stepped inside, closed the door. Then, with the room all to myself, I laughed. Not bitter, not angry, just free. Did I win? Or did I finally let go? A year to the day after the raid, I got a call. It was from a venture firm, offering me a position to lead their ethics and fraud division. Big money, big reach, a chance to change more than just one company. I thought about it. Then I said no, because I had something else in mind. I took the settlement Granger Tech paid me for wrongful termination and did something I never thought I would. I opened my own firm, Cole & Ray Forensic Auditing. Named it after me and Jenna. She hated it. I told her she'd get over it. We didn't chase money. We chased truth. We weren't big, but we were loud where it counted. And the first client? A nonprofit that had been scammed out of $2 million. We got every penny back. 3 years later, I'm sitting in the same coffee shop where I used to meet Lydia. A young guy walks in, nervous, fresh out of college, intern for a company under fire. He recognizes me. "You're Ethan Cole, right?" I nod. He sits, pulls out a folder. His hands tremble like mine once did. He says, "I don't know if I can do this." I smile. "You don't have to know. You just have to start." Because once I was a man who was fired during an audit. Now, I write the rules. The young intern across the table looked at me with wide, unsure eyes. He reminded me of myself, years ago, before the betrayal, before the headlines, before I knew just how deep the rot could go. I watched him clutch the folder of evidence like it might explode in his hands. His voice cracked as he said, "If I speak up, they might ruin me." I nodded slowly, letting the weight of his fear settle in the air. "They might try," I said. "They'll deny it. They'll isolate you. They'll call you crazy, disloyal. maybe even fire you." He looked down. "But here's the truth," I continued. "If you walk away now, it doesn't get easier. You'll carry the silence like a stone in your chest, and it'll grow heavier every day." He didn't respond. So I opened my own briefcase, pulled out a thick case file. Names, numbers, everything we needed. Then I slid it across the table to him. "You're not doing this alone," I said. Was this the beginning of someone else's fight? One I could help carry now? That night, I walked home alone. City lights blurred against the windshield of passing cars. Somewhere, a saxophone played in the distance. It reminded me of nights I used to stare out my apartment window, wondering if any of this would ever make sense. The past still lived inside me. I hadn't forgotten what they did. But I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't fighting ghosts. I was building something. I passed by the old Granger Tech Tower. It looked smaller now, less threatening. Just a building, not a monster. Inside, new leadership, new vision. A company that once devoured truth now funded whistleblower protection programs. They even gave the lobby a name. The Cole Ramsey Integrity Atrium. I never asked for that, but I won't lie. I visited it once. There's a plaque by the front desk with a quote etched in brass. The truth was inconvenient, so they tried to bury him. But truth, like roots, grows back stronger. At home, my living room wall holds one photo. It's not from the day Marcus was arrested. Not the press conferences. Not even the moment I took my new title. It's a snapshot Jenna took, a blurry one, of me and Lydia sitting at that old diner. Coffee between us. Exhausted, but smiling. Two people who stood up when it mattered. Two people who were never supposed to win. Sometimes I still get emails. Stories from people across the country, fraud investigators, first-year auditors, even kids in law school. They don't ask for money. They don't ask for interviews. They just say, "I saw what you did. I'm going to do the same." And that's how I know. I didn't just win. I changed something. They thought firing me would end the story. But the day they forced me out was the day I started writing my own chapter. I was just one voice in a quiet room. But when you tell the truth, and you don't back down, even a whisper can become an earthquake.